Hey, good evening. I'd like to call the North Aurora Village Board meeting for Monday, June 19th, 2023 to order. Please remain silent prayer and meditation. All right, thank you. Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Mayor Gaffino,
Here.
Trustee Christensen,
Here.
Trustee Gately,
Here.
Trustee Lowry,
Here.
Trustee Nedved,
Here.
Trustee Salazar. Here.
All right, thank you. Audience comments is next. If you're here for a line item on the agenda, we'll kind of wait till your items come up. But the first one we have is Robert and Lisa Lescovar. Just state your name and address when you come up.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Try to keep it short. 5 minutes goes by pretty fast.
Yeah. We don't have a stopwatch, so
I'll try to keep it there.
yeah.
That's good evening. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to present tonight. The conversation is going to go a little bit different than I originally planned, probably because of some things that have changed in the last couple hours with the builder. Not for the good, by the way. I live at 473 Pheasant Hill Drive here in North Aurora, Moose Lake Estates. On one of the cul-de-sacs. Some of you have been there or have driven by, I'm sure, in the last few days because I sent some information out prior to the meeting. And it's really about the orientation and position of the house on lot 168. We actually live on lot 169. And if you look at the orientation on the front page of that handout, you can see there pretty clearly that when we look out the front window of our house, we're looking at the side of a garage. Pretty much every house in that development is set 40 feet back from the curb, 30 feet from the road. There's 30-foot setback line. However, Gladstone, when they built in there, they started building and moving everything back that extra 10 feet. So all the houses are pretty much lined up in there. McHugh is coming in and they're building their houses much far forward in the lot. They're building them right up to the front setback line, and they're not, they're making the backyards as big as they possibly can. There's no legal issue with the way the house sits on the lot. And I want to call that out right away because I'm not pursuing something here as far as, saying they're wrong because Billy McHugh and I have had many conversations to that effect. When really there, we would call it's more about the process because I really started this about 3 weeks ago when they started to pour the foundation. And I've been getting the runaround ever since from the three entities involved. The three entities are the village, North Aurora, of course, which is great. I've talked to 4 or 5 people there. They're very clear on their stance. I think they went into a back room and rehearsed their position together. I know where the village stands on this topic. They're responsible for approving it if it falls within the setback lines. And it does. So that one's out of the way. Whether I agree with that or not, it's a whole different story, but that's the end of their stance. That's what they do. It falls in the setback lines. They're done. The HOA doesn't take any responsibility because they don't get involved with it until it's closed on. It becomes part of the HOA. So they wash their hands of it. So then we get to the builder. The builder basically tries to blame the city, saying that the city engineers told him where he had to put the garage and where he had to put the driveway, that he can't move the B box, the water valve, I call it, but here in Illinois, I guess they call it the B box. By the way, I build 1 million square foot distribution centers all over the country from the company I work for. So I know a little bit about construction, maybe not so much residential, but construction definitely. Anyways, what it comes down to, and I could tell by the look in McHugh's eyes when I told him, I said, do you understand that the city just is going to rubber stamp that if it falls inside the setback lines? I could tell by the look on his face that it was a shocker to him. He was surprised. So now you got a situation where the city's done their job. The HOA's done their job by not getting involved. And McHugh, as far as he's concerned, he submitted a plan that fit inside the box and got approved. So he's building away over there and there's no slowing him down, even though I've called before the foundation was poured, called everybody before the foundation was poured. So you can see why I'm a little frustrated and running around in circles here because, you know, I'm not looking for somebody to blame. What I was looking for was some help back during the construction process when they're pouring the foundation. But there's no aesthetic review by anybody involved with this. I think that's personally, it's my opinion. I think that's a failure on the village's part. I think that's a failure on the HOA's part. And I think that's a failure on the builder's part. Unfortunately, you know, I'm not letting it go. I'm going to pursue further action. I can't sort anything out more on it because I've done everything I can at this point. But somebody needs to get involved from those three entities and sit down in a room and talk this through. I shouldn't have to facilitate a meeting from these three people, these three groups, because somebody else is going to, I promise you before this is over with, somebody else is going to end up with a garage in their front lawn, just like I do. And if you look at, I think it's page 3 on there, you can see the view out our front window. We looked straight at the side of a garage, which nobody in their right mind would find that acceptable. None of you would, I know that for sure. And you'd be very frustrated if you tried to stop it before it ever happened and you got no assistance from anybody. That's the first part. Second part of this is that I really, you know, I'm not backing off our HOA. I think our HOA does a horrendous job of enforcing the rules. You know, so I'm going to keep pressure on them as well going forward. But the fact of the matter is they don't review plans. They can't even get the door colors right on the doors in the neighborhood and pursue fixing that. So, you know, I think there needs to be further process. There's a physical hole in this process. If the builder at the end of the day has no checks and balances and he can build whatever he wants and nobody can question it. Nobody's going to say a word. You could build a log cabin on that lot after they put the foundation down, and you can't do anything until you sue for loss of value under the declaration after the house closes. I've checked out all the legal issues involved with this. And there's loopholes in there for sure. But even if you go to Kane County, the recorder's office, the third part of the sale isn't even properly recorded. There's documentation missing. They refer to exhibits that aren't there. I mean, the whole thing is got so many problems that I can't pursue it anymore. I have a real job I have to work at, building distribution centers. And I've pursued these three angles, and I appreciate everybody here at the village. Mark, Steve, you've been a tremendous help. Mike Toth, I mean, everybody's been very, very helpful to me at the city. I understand your stance. Not mad about it, I guess is a good way of putting it. It's consistent for sure. And I understand the other people's stances, but this process really needs to be looked at if you're going to try to drive consistency within the community going forward. You know, when I build distribution centers, we have all sorts of hearings with the neighbors, understand where the building's going to go, what's the lighting going to look like. We take on questions, concerns. We try to do everything we can to be good neighbors. We don't just dig a hole and start building with no oversight. And to approve a plan just because it, you know, let's face it, you guys have seen that commercial where the guy tries to put the square inside the circle in the engine. That's the extent of the review. That's not good. You're not going to get a good result from that. That's all I got. Any questions?
No. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. This is Brooks.
Oh, I am taller than the podium. I'm Linda Brooks. I live at 477 Pheasant Hill Drive in Moose Lake Estates in North Aurora. And I'm just here as for support for the Lescavars. They are my neighbor. So I also see this house being built right outside my front yard. Obviously not as close, but it's there. I had been very happy when the builders had come in because I thought, oh, good, you know, we're going to finish off our development. I moved out here in 2007 from California, and I built in that neighborhood because of the way it looked, the aesthetics of it. I spent a lot of money to move. I spent a lot of money on my house. And now I'm seeing our little cul-de-sac kind of thrown into I don't know, I tell everybody, come out and see it, because you can't even explain standing in their living room and all you see is a wall. You know, we live in Moose Lake Estates and they're living in a fortress now. So anyway, I'm just here to show support with that, and that's about all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? No, okay. Board, any comments?
I mean, staff went over this, correct? I mean, we went over, you and I were over there.
Anybody else? Carolyn?
I don't have any.
Kevin, can you address a few things there?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. I think just a little bit that I've heard from staff and heard from the board members is that they're very empathetic to your situation. One of the challenges of government is that there's a tension between, you know, property rights and what governmental body can do. And as a general rule, you know, government can't tell someone what they can do with their property. There are some exceptions, and zoning is one of those broad exceptions. Zoning allows governmental body to create, you know, zones of residential and commercial and industrial so that there's some planning to the society, to the community, and it isn't a hodgepodge. Also so that people can kind of expect, you know, certain standards, minimal standards to apply in particular zones. And zoning allows a governmental body to establish what those kind of minimum parameters are within a zoning district. And one of those parameters are setback lines. And one of the challenges is that those setback lines have to be uniform. The whole idea behind zoning is that it has to be, you know, you're not picking on a particular property that it would be considered, you know, going beyond what the governmental authority is. You have to set standards that apply to everybody. So the setback lines are the same for everyone. You know, the front setback line, the side setback lines, the rear setback lines, you know, the easements and various things within a development, a zoning area. So, you know, here we have a situation where you've got someone who is putting their house within the parameters that are established for the lot. And that basically means that there's not much that we can do. We can't tell someone, no, you can't put your house there because it's allowed by the zoning code. And we couldn't make an exception and say, no, you can't do that, but everyone else can. And so it puts everyone in a bad spot. You know, there's only, you know, we don't have the hammer that we could step forward with and say, no, you have to push it back because it's within the setback area. So, you know, I think everybody sees exactly what you're talking about and everybody understands why you're not upset about it. But there isn't a remedy that we can employ on your behalf because we have to stick with the rules that are in place, and they're living within those rules, even though, you know, it's not a very neighborly thing to put your house in a position like that where, you know, all you see is a wall from your living room. You may have some private remedies, and I guess I would encourage you to explore that. You know, a neighbor can't harbor, you know, pigs in their backyard that make it smell. You know, you can't store toxic waste in your backyard that smells up the neighborhood. You can't live and create a nuisance for your neighbors. So you may have a private remedy.
And that's where I'll. Last time we changed, you know, the change in the last couple hours, he's pretty much put the hammer down and said he's not changing anything. So, you know, we were open to discussions till about an hour and a half ago, and then any sort of negotiations cut off.
Steve, can you touch base on architectural review or any review maybe the HOA would have had at some point or could have, or?
Sure. So
some towns might have an architectural review. We did check with 5 of the towns nearest to us, Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles, Montgomery, and Oswego. None of them have architectural review. It's not something typically villages do because we're not in the business of checking aesthetics of homes. When a subdivision comes in, they typically provide a plan, and when it goes to the board, that the board will look at the types of housing that will come in. When MI Homes wanted to come in a couple of years ago, clearly was not the type of housing that either the board and the neighbors of Moose Lake Estate wanted. McHugh came in and actually had submitted renderings of the types of housing that they would build in Moose Lake. It was ultimately approved. At the time that it was approved, the village was made aware that the HOA had been negotiating an agreement with McHugh Builders for aesthetic review. We were actually given a copy of that draft agreement. It's the issue now is, I don't know if that was ever signed because it's a private agreement between the HOA and the builder. I just have a draft of that copy. So, but that draft copy would have given the HOA a review of lots as they came into that neighborhood.
Did you know about that, Bob?
Yeah, and I knew that before. Steve's absolutely right. That's where I've ended up in my research as well. You know, that's one of the documents I was referring to earlier that's inconspicuously missing. Exhibit B, as I refer to it. It's referred to in all the sales documentation of the deal, but Exhibit B doesn't exist anyplace. So nobody seems to be able to produce a signed copy. And like you said, there's personal things outside of, you know, there's legal and then there's right. Under the documentation, Steve, as we talked about before, right of enjoyment's got 4 different points under there. You know, one of those definitely fits this situation. You know, having a garage sitting in your front yard will devalue your property. So, you know, I think wherever that ends up, God knows what they'll do. You know, that's for the lawyers to figure out. I don't get involved with that, but I feel like I did everything I possibly could to pursue this with all the entities involved. And like I said, I think there's just, you know, a little bit of like ownership with all 3. McHugh, the guy honestly is sitting back there building houses, thinks that like you guys are dictating what he does. Like he can't move B boxes, and you know, he's submitting off a drawing that he saw 25 years ago that was created 25 years ago as a suggestion for Gladstone. It wasn't a permanent record. Over half the houses in that subdivision are built differently today than they were on that document. But yet he's plowing away with that and he's not asking questions. He honestly, I don't think he knows what's going on in that paperwork, because every time I talk to him about, you know, some section or paragraph on such and such document, no idea what I'm talking about. So he's not asking questions. You guys aren't saying, are you sure you want it here? And, you know, so he's just following a 2000 plan that, you know, it's a terrain plan that was made up 25 years, 30 years ago.
Are you referencing the
and it's a-
2004, the plat when it was platted, or
The one pre,
that the board approved, Steve?
2003.
So what?
Probably referring to there were 2 documents at the beginning that have been coming up in our conversations. The grading plan was probably about 2003.
Yep,
And
that's the
that
one.
one is where they show basically they put a house on a property and they make it all look uniform. And then what it does is it shows you the contour lines and the grade of the property. It gives you kind of an idea of where a driveway may go. The 2004 plat is what I think was the actual approved plat for the subdivision. And that's the one that has the setback lines on it.
yeah, but it doesn't have driveways on it. It's just a square it just shows a square for the house, because they had no idea what would be built at that time. So, but, you know, it's unfortunate. And like I said, you know, there's other stuff in there, Steve, as we talked about with the 75%, you know, owners owning 75% of the lots. There's other avenues that go down there. But I think he if he had stopped when I initially reached out, this wouldn't have been an expensive change. Even he admits he would have reversed it. Okay, if now he's got too much money in it and he don't want to reverse it. So, you know, brings us to today. And it's you know, just not a good situation. And I think for the some of the homeowners that are here, and part of what I wanted to get, you know, just out to them today, and I've been talking to a lot of people, as you can imagine, I know quite a few people in the neighborhood. They're not protected. And I think they think they're protected via you or via the HOA from this sort of thing happening. And they're not protected. You know, you guys are going to stamp it. If it's inside the setback lines, that's your rule. You're consistent for sure. And the builder's just going to, you know, submit a plan. He's not going to ask questions. He, you know, a conversation with him today about moving the B boxes. He honestly thought he couldn't move the B box. And after talking to him today, took that excuse away. Well, you know, we're back to the money again as being the obstacle. So that's where we are.
All right.
Something here, I'm concerned.
You want to come up and state your name and address and everything, sir?
I'm Kevin Kedzior. I live at 453 Pheasant Hill Drive, 3 doors down. And I have 2 empty lots next to my property, which have been staked out, and they're going to be developed. You know, I've known Rob and Lisa for years and years, and I'm as empathetic as everyone about the situation, you know, more so because I live right there on the street with them. But the financial impact for everyone here is not good. It's going to affect the village, because I honestly believe that their house is going to be worth $100,000 less because of this. There's no way that I would pay market value for their house in light of what's happening. And so the financial impact to the village is your tax revenue is going to go down indefinitely on that piece of property. And maybe it's something that you should take into consideration. Maybe it's something that you could talk with McHugh about and will somehow lessen the impact, because you will be financially impacted by it. Not a lot, but the annualized effect of that decade after decade will affect the village.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would add that, you know, we can't change the rules after the fact. So unfortunately, I don't think we're your source of strength here. I mean, just the fact though that you know, made that observation that there's a direct impact to the value of the house, I think establishes the likelihood that there's a private cause of action here. The other thing is that often HOA covenants often fill the gap that municipal zoning laws, you know, can't fill. And, you know, it's unfortunate that your HOA isn't kind of going to bat for the community, the neighborhood, because that, you know, they have, and I don't know what the covenants look like. I don't know if they have that strength in the covenants. It sounds like they had, if there is a signed document that was floating around, they might have the teeth to do it. But if it was never actually signed or completed, then they don't. I don't know what the status of that is.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any comments?
I was just gonna say it's common sense that this guy should have flipped the garage. I mean, when you look at it, it doesn't really make sense as a builder to put your name behind that. So hopefully in good faith, you'll get a resolution at some point.
Are there any other empty lots in any cul-de-sacs over there that this could happen in the future?
Same on the next cul-de-sac down. They're building the same exact house with a house just like mine next to it on the cul-de-sac at the other end of the street there. And they have it reversed the right way, and it symmetrically fits into the neighborhood properly, or the cul-de-sac properly. And if, you know, it completes the semicircle because the house sits back even with the house next to it, and the garage is far enough forward with that first house that's not on the cul-de-sac that it lines up. And that's the correct way it should be done. Because if you can see there in that drawing, if the garage is where the blue box is on that drawing.
Right.
We're not having any of these conversations because, you know, somebody used some common sense. They put the long side of the house on the long side of the lot. You know, but you know, the way it is, it's just horrific. I mean, and honest to God, Mr. McHugh stood in our living room and looked at it and goes, "Oh, this isn't that bad." He's a real friendly character. He don't want anybody telling him what he can or can't do.
Anybody else? Carolyn, Mike?
I'm,
I can't, all I can do is offer sympathy.
Yeah.
I completely understand this man's being upset about this. I wonder, can the village do anything with the HOA, or is the HOA in charge of the area yet? Did they?
Not yet. And that's one of the things I believe under the declaration the 75% mark, it calls out in there about once 75% of the lots are owned by
Yeah,
people,
residents, right?
residents, that the HOA gets a certain level of voting rights, but it doesn't spell out in the sales document what those voting rights are for. So, you know, this could be one of the things that, you know, that it turns over, but as of today, it has not been turned over to the HOA.
You know what percent it is right now? Do you have any?
Right
idea?
at 75% counting these 6 lots.
Oh.
Oh. Right there.
I would just say that I empathize greatly with you. I would be very frustrated if that happened to me in my neighborhood. I don't really think it speaks well of McHugh as being a good neighbor. And you know, maybe that's just something that the board keeps in mind going forward should they ever come before us again.
Yeah, certainly not good business for him. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all, but.
You know, and you know, I work in the furniture business. We take these opportunities to take a bad situation and make that person a spokesperson for us
Right.
and turn it
Oh,
into a
for sure.
positive. You know,
No,
and in
I
this
agree.
case, he's going down the road of you know, what I would call an irresponsible decision.
Yep.
I'm careful on how I choose my words. I don't want to get in trouble. But, you know, if you ask 10 people, you know, do you think that was an irresponsible decision? I think 10 people would say yes. So, you know, I can say he's irresponsible. I definitely believe he's an irresponsible builder. Yes. In fact, I would dare say that he may have never even visited that lot until I got him out there, or until my wife got him out there the other day. Because he wouldn't return my calls, but he returned her calls.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep. All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second,
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
trustee Gately,
Yes.
trustee Lowry,
yes.
trustee Nedved,
Yes.
trustee Salazar,
Yes.
trustee Christensen,
Yes.
All right, thank you. Under new business, item 1, Jason.
This item is a approval of a memorandum of agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, regarding the creation of a mechanic position. Do you remember we previously presented a Public Works restructuring plan where the village administrator was restructured to the Assistant Public Works Director / Village Administrator? The village engineer. The foreman position was authorized and the street superintendent was deauthorized. Tonight's item is viewed as kind of the step 2 of that plan. Currently, one of our laborers does a lot of the vehicle maintenance in-house. And we really want to make this position more of a specialized position that required ASC certifications. So this position will be advertised or filled through the union. So ultimately, it's going to be, you know, a mechanic position and then getting rid of a labor position, basically to even things out, so no headcount increase.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
trustee Gately,
Yes.
trustee Lowry,
Yes.
trustee Nedved,
Yes.
trustee Salazar,
Yes.
trustee Christensen,
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 2, Jason.
So this item is an ordinance to amend the budget for fiscal year 23-24. This relates to the item that we just presented. So this will authorize 1 mechanic position and deauthorize 1 laborer's position. With this, it increases salary and benefits within the Public Works Department by $3,930. But as I mentioned, basically the first budget amendment we did with the reorganization plan actually reduced the budget by $78,530. So in total, these 2 items together reduces the budget by $74,600.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
trustee Nedved,
Yes.
trustee Salazar,
Yes.
trustee Christensen,
Yes.
trustee Gately,
Yes.
trustee Lowry.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 3, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Department is looking for approval to cancel our truck purchase with the National Auto Fleet Group. This is a state purchase program. However, they have become unreliable and unable to deliver us vehicles in a timely manner. We've had an 8-month delay on an order we had in last fiscal year. So there is no penalty for us to cancel our order. There was we budgeted for another truck this year. So we would like to purchase 2 trucks from a dealership that we had found online. The amount budgeted is $107,910. The purchase of the 2 trucks would be for $110,820.52. This is about $2,910 over our budgeted amount. However, there is enough in the fund to cover that.
For clarification, this is actually the next item on the agenda.
Yeah.
So,
Did I skip that one? Oh,
yeah. So that's okay, Brian. Now you don't have to present it on the next one. But before we vote, we should go back to item number 3, which is actually for a dump truck.
okay. Back to that one.
Just seeing if we're
No
paying
problem.
attention.
So this is the purchase. We're looking to purchase a 2026 international snowplow truck. If you'll notice, it says it's a 2026 because they are so far out in the building of trucks that we will not see this vehicle until 2026. It's a international HV 607 equipped with a swap loader hook lift system, and it also come with a V-Box spreader, 11-foot snowplow, and 1,065-gallon anti-icing system. This truck's very versatile. It can be used as 5 different trucks in one day. We have other attachments for it that we can roll off and put back on in the day. So it can be a snowplow truck. It can be chip trees. It can pick up leaves, anti-ice, and at the end of the day, it can plow snow. So that's why it's a little more expensive than a normal truck. So we're looking to purchase this vehicle in the amount of $318,159 with a not to exceed amount of $350,000 for any fluctuation in pricing from Monroe Truck.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? I think that'll help the leaf snow deadline, right? I mean, you could switch them out real quick and
Yeah,
go
that's-
back to one or the other versus a week.
We currently have
Switching
2 other
trucks over.
we currently have 2 other trucks like this.
Yeah,
So we have a lot of the equipment already on hand that can
Yeah.
be swapped out with this truck.
yeah, that's great. Roll, please.
Trustee Gately,
Yes.
trustee Lowry,
Yes.
trustee Nedved,
Yes.
trustee Salazar,
Yes.
trustee Christensen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now, item 4.
Can you repeat everything again or?
Oh.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Roll.
Trustee Lowry,
Yes.
trustee Nedved,
Yes.
trustee Salazar,
Yes.
trustee Christensen,
Yes.
trustee Gately.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 5, Nathan.
Good evening, everyone. This ordinance is for the West Aurora School District for a vocational center at 202 Genesis Drive. The board saw it on their May 15th Committee of the Whole meeting. Planning Commission saw it on June 6th, voted to approve with one condition, just if the school district were to change the facade, that would follow our standards. So it's back tonight for the final vote. Angie Smith from the school district is here. So if you have any questions, they're looking to close by the end of the month. So they'd like to get this final vote.
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion. Yes, great use of that building. That's been on and off vacant for long as I can remember. So when I, getting the kids in there and learning a trade that they can go right across Orchard and work at Riverfront, that'd be fantastic. So.
Trustee Gately,
Yes.
trustee Lowry,
Yes.
trustee Nedved,
Yes.
trustee Salazar,
Yes.
trustee Christensen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That concludes our new business. Village President report. I have nothing. Trustee comments?
I just wanted to welcome Nathan to his first board meeting.
Thank you.
Administrator report.
Just quickly, I was also going to welcome Nathan. He's been here 1 week, so but has plenty of experience in his past village and he's worked his way up through the community development department there. Also wanted to tell Brian that I've been very proud of the way the Public Works Department has gone about looking at their truck purchases. I know that the state purchasing is been so bad and waiting for more than a year and a half to get a truck sometimes. it just sets our operations back. So being able to find comparably priced trucks on the open market and getting them in a few weeks or a few months as opposed to a year or two has been a real good process. So I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Department reports.
Yes, Mayor. Officer Manko retired today after 28 years of service. We do have a newly established entry-level list. That officer will start the academy August 28th, once he or she is identified, with hoping for solo patrol by March of 2024.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, motion adjourned.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we'll be meeting for the committee of the whole shortly. So stick around.